Good morning, everybody. It's really just such a joy and a privilege to be able to talk to you today. I was feeling pretty nervous this morning, but then Dina actually said something really helpful. She said, "You're just sharing your heart with your family." So thanks, family, for listening to my heart. And I've had a bit of a cold, so please excuse my voice. I know I only have 10 minutes to talk to you today, and I'm going to be really tempted to waffle on for half an hour, so I'm going to dive right in. But my topic today is longing for a life that I can handle. Now, I don't know if that appeals to you, but certainly for me, as a recovering control freak, and someone who's battled the anxiety in my life, feeling like I can cope with what's going on in my life has been really important to me. Now, we know that life gets hard and challenges come our way, but as Christians, when that happens, and you might not have heard this, you might say it all the time, but I know I used to say to myself and other people that it's okay, don't worry, God isn't going to give you more than you can handle. Now, this idea that God knows what you have the strength for, He knows, what you can endure, and He doesn't really push you too far, That was a really, really comforting thought to me until I started to experience a lot of stuff in my life that really felt like it was way more than I could handle. And that's when I started to wonder if the Bible really teaches us that God promises us that He won't give us more than we can handle. And I have looked and I have found no such promise. But what I have found are the words of the Apostle Paul. Now, we've heard a lot about Paul the last few weeks, actually, about how much he suffered, about how he was shipwrecked, he was beaten, he was imprisoned. Like, the guy really suffered. In fact, he suffered so much that the church he planted in Corinth, they were getting really concerned. They were saying to each other, this guy suffers too much. Like, too much bad stuff is happening to this guy. How can he really be an anointed man of God? Like, is God really using him? Because it just doesn't seem like it. So Paul actually, in response, wrote the second letter to the Corinthians, responding to these concerns and to a bunch of other things. And in this letter, we find my text for today. And I feel like this is actually Paul teaching us kind of the opposite of God not giving us more than we can handle. In 2 Corinthians 1, 8-10, it says, "We do not want you to be uninformed, brothers and sisters, about the troubles we experienced in the province of Asia. We were under great pressure, far beyond our ability to endure, so that we despaired of life itself. Indeed, we felt we had received the sentence of death. But this happened that we might not rely on ourselves, but on God who raises the dead. He has delivered us from such a deadly peril, and He will deliver us again. On Him we have set our hope that He will continue to deliver us." Here we see that Paul is teaching us that God lovingly allows us to go through things that we can't handle, things that are beyond our ability to endure. And it's only when we reach the end of our own strength that we learn how to fully rely on God. Now, friends, I have been learning this lesson the hard way. Almost exactly 4 years ago, on one of the Every Nation student weekends away, God spoke to me really clearly about entering into a season of endurance, which is really not something you want to hear the Lord say to you. And I don't think it was a coincidence, but later that day I found out I was pregnant. Those of you who've had children will know. But really, it's been a very, very hard 4 years. Now, I could stand up here and tell you all the details, but I'm not sure that you have time for that and that you'd be very encouraged or edified. But basically, it's just been a lot of physical sickness, pain, frustration, loneliness, discontent, boredom, feeling trapped. It's just been really, really hard. And honestly, I have felt like I have been continuously living at the absolute end of myself. And I've experienced moments of really, really deep despair. And I don't know if you can relate. I mean, mine is essentially rooted in my experience of motherhood, really. And not to put you off, but we did have 2 children 13 months apart, which, I'm not sure I recommend unless God tells you. But, you might be in a difficult relationship. You might have a job that drains you, that you feel stuck in. You might be experiencing physical sickness, pain, financial stress, anxiety, depression. It might not be something so major that you experience in your life that makes you feel like you're at the end of yourself. It could just be this universal experience of having one of those really long days when everything just seems to go wrong, and by the end of it, you just can't cope. For me, there have just been so many points over the last 4 years where I have felt like life is far more than I can handle. I've gone through more extended hardship and frustration in the last 4 years than ever before, probably in my life. But ironically, I've also experienced more of the presence and power of God in the last 4 years than ever before in my life. Through it all, I can confidently say, with the Apostle Paul, that all these things have happened so that I might learn to rely not on myself, but on God who raises the dead. Now, it might be all good and well for me to stand up here and say to you all, don't worry, God gives you more than you can handle, but it's so that you can rely on Him, not on yourselves. How? How do you do that? How do you rely on God and not on yourself? And I just want to, in closing, because 10 minutes goes really, really fast, just want to share with you guys 2 things that I've learned in this season. And the first thing is to lean into God. When we feel like we're at the end of ourselves, so often we try to lean deeper into ourselves. Like just get through. And some of us, I think, have just greater natural capacity than others. I know Dave, my husband, he can kind of just power through. We're tempted to lean into ourselves, and when that doesn't work, we lean into other stuff. It might just be sleep, it might be PlayStation, PS4, it might be food, other people, a glass of wine at the end of the day. But, it might help you in a moment, but it's not ultimately going to help you endure what you're going through. But how? How do we lean into God? And friends, I actually think it's so easy. Start talking to Him. I know, my life, stuff goes wrong, I'm frustrated, or I'm struggling with something. Often, my first response is not to tell God about it. It's to go to those other things, or to try and really dig deep. Don't. Talk to God about it. Talk to Him about your feelings. Talk to Him about your frustrations. Shout at Him, moan at Him. He can take it. Don't just talk to Him. Ask Him for help. The Bible says we don't have because we don't ask. I know that's true in my life so often. Ask for peace, ask for joy, ask for God to help you, to show you how to live in His power when you feel weak. Ask. And even more importantly, make room, make space in your life to listen to God. For me, one story, when I was at one of my lowest points, probably about 2 years ago, I just remember feeling so desperate and despairing and actually just railing at God and saying, I'm supposed to be living this victorious life, more than a conqueror, doing all things through Christ who strengthens me, but I'm just not. I don't feel that way, and I don't even feel like I have time to have a quiet time. I know that's the answer. I should be spending time with you. I have 2 young children. I don't have time for sleep. I just want to, do my laundry. God, I don't have time for you. What do you expect me to do? And in that moment, the Holy Spirit so clearly just said to me, Tam, you haven't even asked me. And I just felt so convicted. I thought it was impossible to find space and time for God in my day. But God, nothing is impossible. So I just started asking. I was like, okay, Lord, sorry. Please help me find space and time in my day. Within a few days, I think literally like 2 days, my children started napping at the same time, which moms will know. That's like a win. And that has lasted 2 years. Every single day, I have the opportunity to have time with God. I'm not saying I choose it every day. Sometimes I don't, and then I have a bad day. But ask. I know a lot of people, we're busy people. We're stressed people. Got a lot going on. You can't fit God into your day. It's because you're just not asking Him to help you. Don't make excuses. Lean into God. And secondly, lean into God's will, even if God's will is frustration and suffering. In our culture, we're taught to do everything we can to avoid discomfort, avoid pain, avoid anything that's difficult. If it's challenging, you don't want to do it. But the Bible tells us over and over and over again that there's something that's a part of God's mysterious plan to use suffering and frustration to refine us and make us more like Christ. Friends, let me say that it's okay to ask God to take stuff away. Even Jesus, facing the cross, prayed, Lord, take this cup from me. It's okay. And sometimes God does. But often He doesn't. And when you're discerning that something that you're going through, whether it's a visa issue or a death of a loved one, it's part of God's will, Lean into it. Friends, the key is there is gold in the suffering. There is so much to be gotten from it because you can learn to be like Christ. You can meet God in a new way. And I think that's why God lets it happen. When God lovingly allows hardship and suffering in your life, and when He's lovingly leading you to the end of yourself, lean in. Don't avoid it. Embrace these things with faith and choose to surrender yourself to the loving refinement of God. Finally, the last verse that I read says, "On Him we have set our hope that He will continue to deliver us." When I was a teenager, my dad died of cancer. And I think if someone had said to me in that moment, don't worry, God won't give you more than you can handle, I probably would have punched them in the face because it certainly felt like more than I could handle. But actually, a loving and wise and godly woman actually said something to me that was far more helpful. She said, "This too shall pass." And friends, God will deliver us. It might not be in this life, and it might be in this life. It might be next week, it might be in a month, it might be in 6 years. But this too shall pass. Keep that perspective. Keep that hope, because God will deliver you. So friends, I think God sometimes allows us to go through things that are far more than we can handle. At least He does for me. But when He does, lean into Him, not yourself, not other stuff, and lean into His will and learn to live in His power. Thank you.